Lieutenant Rhym and Sebastian are on the hunt for a werewolf terrorist before he sets off a deadly curse bomb. We're going to talk about it right here in our review of The Agent number 4 from Ablaze Publishing. See you in 3. And welcome back to Comical Opinions. This is our review of The Agent number 4 from Ablaze Publishing. This issue is written by Matthew Gabella, art by Fernando Dagnino, colors by Carlos Morote, letters by Vibrant Studios, and the main cover, cover A, is drawn by Julius Ota. Let's talk about what happened in the previous issue. Lieutenant Rhym has now been somewhat fully indoctrinated into the world of magic, and Sebastian has revealed to her that she comes from a line of people known as trackers. She's always known she's had this uncanny ability to find people, find suspects, find criminals wherever they go, and sort of this intuitive capability of knowing where they're going to head next or what is their next move. Sebastian now lets her know that is not by accident. She has an innate magical ability to track people down, hence the name Trackers. And they come from a nearly extinct line of people that originates from somewhere in the Middle East. When he sort of eggs her on to use her tracking ability, going on pure instinct, they find the drug dealer / killer that was responsible for killing her entire squad of colleagues, and they track down his vehicle that was abandoned in the woods. After the team is attacked by these dogs who have been hulked out and turned into these rabid animals, Sebastian and Lieutenant Rhym find out that the terrorist that they're trying to track down is actually also a werewolf, which puts a new mythological or legendary twist on the entire adventure. And that's where we left off. Picking up now in The Agent number 4, Sebastian takes Lieutenant Rhym to a camp of Romani, who are known sometimes as gypsies. I'm not sure if that term is necessarily still applicable or politically correct anymore, but we'll just call them gypsies for simplicity's sake. And there they encounter a group of mediums that Sebastian has on retainer. One is named Pendulum, one is named Tarot, one is named Mark, but it's French for having to do with a ground cup of coffee, which is coffee is sometimes used in spiritual medium type ceremonies to help track their target. Through the course of the investigation of using satellite imagery, dealing with federal agencies, and reading tarot cards and casting spells, they figure out that the terrorist is somewhere in a particular region of France. Lieutenant Rhym and Sebastian head off to that location. Her tracking abilities kick in stronger and stronger as they get closer to their target. And through the course of the conversation, we learn, and which is important for Lieutenant Rhym, but it's also important for us to understand that magical capabilities when it comes to tracking or divination or curses in particular are all fed by fear. So in this world of magic that Matthew Gabella has created, fear is a fuel, if you will, for curses, spells, innate magical capabilities. Fear drives it. It feeds it. And so the more fear is concentrated in a particular area, the stronger sorcerers and people with magical capabilities in that area get. So as we get closer, as Lieutenant Rhym and Sebastian get closer to their target, they find this house in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere, and she's innately, strongly drawn to it. They go in and they find rooms and rooms of people who are dead. And they're not only dead, but partially eaten by wolves, because there's scat everywhere, and all their hands and identifying markers, anything that might have a fingerprint or a footprint on it, have been eaten away. So they know they're in the right place. And not only is the lead terrorist who they're looking for a werewolf, he apparently has a command of a pack of other wolves, which means he's very powerful. As they're investigating, trying to find out what's going on, they realize that the people who are dead were, in drug parlance, pack mules. They were illegal immigrants, illegal aliens who were promised some kind of either cash or access to a country if they would carry drugs with them. In this case, the drugs are the thermide, which is that weird grass we saw in the very first issue, but they were told to eat it and swallow it, which makes them forget. But at the same time, it also, when the wolves eat them, and the scat comes out of the wolf, that they can recover the drugs. It's a very weird and kind of a gross way of handling drug trafficking, but okay, that's the way to handle it. However, when Lieutenant Rhym and Sebastian are cataloging the rooms and trying to figure out where to go next, the pack shows up outside, and Sebastian kind of uses Lieutenant Rhym as bait without her realizing it. He heads out into the woods by locking her in a particular room, and the wolves jump through the window and start attacking. Lieutenant Rhym is shooting away, trying to keep the wolves off her. But what she doesn't realize is Sebastian went into the woods and finds where they left all their clothes and personal belongings before the people transformed into wolves. He uses a magical dagger and stabs the clothes, and that somehow makes all the wolves disappear and reappear where the clothes were, back in human form. So it was a sort of like, I'm going to use you to distract the wolves while I go find out their source and revert them to human form where they're more, or I should say, less powerful. And that kind of brings the whole thing to a close, because now we know that we've tracked the terrorist, but the clock is still ticking for the terrorist attack. We don't know where the bomb is, and because the entire plan, we find out through the interrogation, was compartmentalized. In other words, the werewolf doesn't know what happens after he delivered the materials for the bomb. And so now Sebastian and Lieutenant Rhym are, their trail has gone cold, which makes things a little bit more difficult for them. However, the flip side of this is the only reason Lieutenant Rhym's colleagues were able to be killed is because there is a traitor in their midst. And as a cliffhanger for the very last page, we figure out that one of the traitors in their midst might have been one of her colleagues. So he allowed himself to be killed because now he has risen from the dead and he is taking his place in the terrorist plot. So lots of twists and turns. Things get a little hairy, no pun intended, as for Lieutenant Rhym. And there we go. So there's a lot of magic, a lot of monsters, all grounded in reality, but that's where the story kicks off. So in other words, we know that there's a terrorist plot that's going to happen in less than 24 hours. We don't quite know where to look next. And there is a traitor amongst the police for at least one of Lieutenant Rhym's colleagues. And that traitor, it was one of the people that was killed. But we don't know who, because all we see is sort of an emerging hand coming out of a morgue's cadaver closet. What do we think about this issue? Did we like it? Did we not like it? Well, I mean, I've gotten you all the details, but does it really hit the nail on the head? Does it really draw you in? From the positive side of things for the agent number 4, generally speaking, it's interesting. It's interesting because of the magic and the world that Matthew Gabella is building. Learning all the rules, you get a lot of the rule sets that are necessary for a magical system to work, which is necessary for any fantasy type of story. You get a lot of the rules in this particular scenario. You get some reveals. The world is built out. The magical system is built out, and you seeing the world unfold itself through the eyes of Lieutenant Rhym learn a lot. So if you're really into magical systems and really into learning about how things work, which is the world underneath the world we thought we knew, this is kind of interesting stuff. But it's interesting. That's where I'm going to leave it right there. So let's talk about what we didn't like about the agent number 4. There's a lot of things that are happening very quickly and almost haphazardly. It's not to say that this issue felt rushed. It's there's nothing. You're getting little bits and pieces of the world and the rule sets and the magic and all these things that are happening because they're happening so fast. It doesn't feel like you get time to kind of absorb what these things mean. We don't quite know why there's a terrorist attack. We don't know what they're after. We're not quite sure what a curse bomb is or what it does or what is the end result or consequence for the world. So you're so busy trying to solve a crime and you don't quite understand the scale and the scope of the crime because Gabella's going through it so quickly that you none of the pieces really fill out a full picture. You're just getting bits and pieces. So you get the framework, the bones of the story, but it hasn't quite fleshed out fully. So you don't get the full impact and the full realization. Now, some of that might be because some of the loose ends will get tied up in a later issue. That's possible. The other part of that is to maybe there's some language translations going on here. That's also possible. but the net effect is you feel like you have the structure of the story and the major chunks, but there are a lot of little holes, and so it doesn't feel so complete, and it doesn't quite flow the way you want it to, and it doesn't feel like you've quite absorbed everything that's happening. You understand everything that's happening, but it doesn't make a full picture, and so that's where it's a little bit of a struggle and a little bit of a downer for this particular issue. Let's talk about the art from Fernando Dagnino. Great. This is great art. Dagnino, we've encountered many times before in an assortment of publications from an assortment of publishers. He knows how to do shadows. He knows how to do gritty, um, dramatic panels. You get a lot of deep shadow, or I'd say foreshadowing using shadows, a lot of drama. The character designs look great. The action looks well done, and you get a lot of that earthy groundedness that you're looking for in a story of this sort, which is effectively an urban fantasy. So Dagnino is a great choice for this story, and it works out pretty well. So final thoughts. What do we think about the Agent Number 4 from Ablaze Publishing? Interesting world development, interesting bits of information that help you understand the magic systems that are part of Matthew Gabella's world. And there is a good pace to it because now we have a ticking clock with a terrorist bomb. So there is a sense of urgency, and you do feel that. It's not super urgent, but you do feel it. On the downside, so much is happening so quickly, it doesn't feel rushed, but you don't get the full picture of the story, and the pieces aren't quite fitting together to give you a fully realized sense of purpose and motivation for what the characters are trying to do, or why, or the consequences. You're just sort of going along for the ride, and it's pulling you along very quickly, but you don't have enough of a sense of the full picture, which is a bit of a downer. Therefore, we're going to give the Agent Number 4 from Ablaze Publishing a 7.2 out of 10. Let us know what you think. Do you like urban fantasies with magical systems and trying to figure that all out? Or do you just like the things to flow and regardless of where it goes, and let the story take you? Leave a comment down below. Let us know what you think. And if you want to hear or listen to more reviews just like this one, stay tuned through the outro.